Okay, so this is a webcast concerning translation resources for English language learners. The things I'm going to be talking about in my webcast here. A little bit of history about translation and some caveats using Google Translate, translating in Word, translating tests with ExamView, and then finally using an online document translator to translate things like PowerPoint and PDF files. I had a student last year who came in from Haiti and didn't speak any English, so I kind of had to figure out how to do this stuff, and it was very successful for her. She was very strong in her primary language, which was French, and she worked very hard and eventually ended up passing the CAPT exam without even taking the biology course, which covers quite a bit of the material for the science portion of the CAPT. So she did really well with it. I currently have a few Chinese students who I'm using it for as well. The translating software does not produce the highest quality translations. According to Mrs. Klein, the language department head, she took a look at some of the French ones and said that they were okay, they could be better, but on a day-to-day basis we don't have her expertise. So this is a pretty good little workaround that you can use with some of your English language learners that will hopefully help them understand the topics that you are trying to teach them, and hopefully will allow them to maybe learn English a little bit faster. So let me just go ahead and show you some different ways to go ahead and translate information using the computer. The first thing we're going to start with is a tool called Google Translate. So let's take a look at that. So here is the Google Translate page, and you can see on here that you've got a from and a to. You can choose whatever language you want to translate to. I'm going to use traditional Chinese, or I'm sorry, simplified Chinese as an example, mainly because I have some current students that I use that for, so it's going to be set up for that and a bunch of the different pieces of software that I'm using today. So you can do simple stuff even if you just have a student that doesn't understand what you're saying when you talk to them. You can just use it to communicate with them. For example, if I just type stuff in like this, it'll translate it for them, and also gives you a phonetic pronunciation in English down on the bottom if you choose the Chinese text. So that's a pretty easy one to use. Google Translate's a pretty cool tool. Another thing it does is it also translates web pages. So to do that, all you have to do is take and cut and paste your web address into it. So if I just take, here I have my teacher page, and I cut and paste that in, and you can see that it translates it into a hyperlink over here. And once you click on that hyperlink, it will translate the page for you. So you can see it keeps a lot of the formatting on the page, keeps some of the pictures on the page as well. An issue with this is some of the links work well, some of them don't. For example, if I click on the page for that particular class, you can see that that particular class, all the homework assignments that we've posted on there show up translated, and you can see that the text will translate, a lot of the numbers will not. And then an issue that you may have is once you go to try to open up documents, sometimes it doesn't open them up for you, so you have to go back to the original page and open those up. But again, it gives them a pretty good side-by-side comparison of your website and the translated version of it, and it'll do this for pretty much any website as well. Alright, so the next thing I'd like to talk about is using Microsoft Word to translate documents. So let me open up a Word document here. And translating documents in Word is very easy. So here is a lab handout that we do in my class that I want to translate. So if you come up towards the top, there's a tab here called Review. If you click on the Review tab, you notice that you get a bunch of different options here. One of them is to translate. So if you click on that, it asks you what you want to translate to. And I'm just going to go ahead and click it here, and it's going to send it out to a website that will translate it for you. So now at the moment, this is translating it into French, but I can choose whatever language I want to translate it into. Like, for example, I was using simplified Chinese, so we can translate it into that as well. And then you can see it translates that document. And then what you need to do is bring it back over to Word. So if you go over here to select all, and then you can either right click and copy or use the Control-C keystroke to copy it. And then you can go back to Word, open up a new document, a new blank document, and then you can right click and paste, or just hit Control-V, which I just did, and you can see that it pastes it back in. And you can see that it keeps most of the source formatting. It looks pretty similar to the English form of the document. If you look at the two side by side here, you can see that they look pretty similar, and it keeps a lot of the source formatting. So that is how you translate using Microsoft Word. And then, if you wanted to print out a copy, obviously you could print out a copy of the translated document. I like to give them the English and the translated version so that they can look at them side by side and see exactly what it is that they're trying to do with the particular assignment. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is translating ExamView tests. A lot of people use ExamView to create tests, and we can also translate that stuff. So let me open up a file where, oops, this is an ExamView, I apologize. Let me open up an ExamView file here, and you can open up your test. So I'm going to open up an existing test here. So I'll just, here's an example of a test. So if you come up here, you can't translate within ExamView. So what I like to do is get it into Microsoft Word and then translate it. So if you come up here to File, and then you go down to Export, if you export it as a rich text format document, you can do that. So up here I'll just save it to my desktop. And now it's saved as an RTF document, or a rich text format document. So now once I go to my desktop, I'll have to find it here. Here it is. You can see now I have the test in Microsoft Word. So I can just go back to the Review tab, go to Translate, go to the other website, and it'll translate it for me. So again, what I like to do is give them the English version and the translated version, and they can look at the two side by side and use it to understand what we're trying to ask them on the test. And you can go back and change your language. You just have to click on this tab here to switch the language and then hit the little arrow and it'll make the translation for you. Again, here I think the best thing to do is to select everything by right-clicking and hitting select all, and then copying it and bringing it back into Word as a new document and pasting it in. And you can see here now that we have our exam view test that has been translated for us. Okay, next thing I'd like to talk about is how to translate PowerPoint. Here's an example of a PowerPoint presentation. So now here, to translate PowerPoint, you could copy and paste and do each slide individually in Google Translate, but there's a pretty cool app out there that is called, and I've got a link to it on my presentation here, the Online Document Translator. So I'll click on my hyperlink and you can just Google Online Doc Translator and you'll find this onlinedoctranslator.com website. So if you go down towards the bottom here to where it says Start Document Translator, it'll ask you what kind of a document it is that you would like to translate. It gives you a Java security risk security warning here. I checked with Billy over at IT and he says that this is okay to run, and he says as long as it doesn't give us viruses it's okay. So I haven't gotten a virus from it yet, so hopefully it'll be fine. But if you come down over here, you can see it's got a whole bunch of different types of documents. So I'm going to pick on the PowerPoint one, and we'll go ahead and translate my PowerPoint document. Now it's asking me to choose a file. So I'm going to go over here to desktop and pick the file that I want to translate. And I have picked that file. If I just scroll up, it's going to ask me what language I would like to translate it into. So once again, I'm going to go to traditional Chinese here. And then once you click on the little arrow, it will start the translation for you. And it also is going to ask you, what do you want to save it as? So it defaults to a certain file name. It gives you a quick abbreviation of the languages here. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer. This one translated pretty quickly. So now if I just click on this little magnifying glass, it will open up that PowerPoint with all of the slides translated. You can see that the text is translated, but the numbers are not, and you can see it keeps the source formatting, which is a pretty good thing. So again, you can have your student look at side-by-side versions of the English version and the translated version, and they'll be able to hopefully understand what it is that you're trying to ask them. The online doc translator also can be utilized to translate PDF documents. So I'll show you that real fast. So I'm going to come over here to translate another document, and I'm going to pick the PDF version. And now it's going to ask me what I would like to translate. One of the textbooks that we use has a CD version, so I've uploaded a portion of my textbook here to the CD version that I'm going to use to translate. So I'm going to pick the file that I want to translate. So here I'm going to translate Chapter 1 from our text. And now I'm going to pick the language, and again I'll do traditional Chinese. And it's asking me what I would like to save the document as, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. And this one is a multi-page document, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but once I'm done, it will be able to show me what the document looks like. and it'll keep a lot of the source formatting, which is a pretty good thing. In the past, we've just kind of taken the text and cut and paste it into Google Translate, which works just fine as well. But being able to get a different language of your textbook for your students is sometimes problematic. For example, I called up the textbook publisher after I had my French student and my Chinese students and asked if they had a Chinese or a French version of the text, and they didn't. So this is the workaround that we've developed so that they can still access the information in their textbook in both the English and their primary language. Okay, so now the translation's done. So we'll take a look at what it looks like. So you can see some of the pictures don't get translated, like the chapter title here is a photo that was not translated, but a lot of the other text is translated, and you can see it's not perfect. Some of the things end up kind of overlapping one another, but again, you can get a pretty good idea of what the textbook looks like in their native language, with a lot of the source formatting present as well. So this textbook, you can see, has lots of pictures, lots of figures, and I think it does a pretty good job with translating it, and they can see translation of captions and pictures and stuff like that. So unfortunately, I don't have a good workaround at this time for translating flip charts. I sent an email over to the Promethean people and trying to figure that out. So I can't present to you how to translate a flip chart at this time, but you can work around that by cutting and pasting individual slides into Google Translate, and you can do it that way. Thank you. No, I need to stop this thing.
You did a good job.